Welcome to Market Makers, everybody. Your home for tomorrow's TA today. Often imitated, never replicated. Guys, I have a couple big announcements. I know I told you I wouldn't do a YouTube video this week, so I just released a video on Thursday, but this is a live stream we just recorded on the Discord. I think you guys will enjoy it. I know a lot of you want my thoughts because Bitcoin is ripping up as we have predicted for months, pushing towards those upper end targets. The markets are at key resistance levels. So I wanted to give you guys an update. But the big announcement is our website has finally launched. If you're watching this, our website is live. You can now join our Discord directly through the website, marketmakers.trade. I'll pin it in the YouTube comments. It's integrated. A lot of people in my age bracket, I had a lot of problems with Discord. It's a lot easier to join now, so you should check it out. But also there is a website exclusive package membership, which is half the cost. You get all of our content, my 2 additional videos I do every week, my staff's content, our block state updates, our future trade setups, my future trade setups. That'll all be hosted on the website if you guys want to check it out. I hope you enjoy it. Check out marketmakers.trade. Enjoy the live stream. And of course, I'll answer your comments as always. Hope to see you guys on the website or in the Discord. Talk to you guys next week for the next YouTube update. What's going on, Discord?
How's it going, everyone?
What's going on, Lee?
Not much, mate. As you can see, Movember's coming in nicely. I've got the 16-year-old mustache coming on strong.
Oh, yeah. No shave November.
Mm-hmm.
Catching up. All right.
Man.
I see your request there for SHIB. We'll get to that at the end. I also have a request for RIOT. We'll get to that at the end. Lee, you'll have to remind me of those two. Guys, there's a chat function there if you want to click that. I'll do a couple of requests at the end. I can't do 5 or 10 requests. The video gets too long, but I'll do the couple that are already requested, and we'll just wait like 30 seconds, give people a second here to join because this was kind of short notice. But I got a couple guys here working at the house, guys, and if you hear a doorbell or dogs barking, I'll have to pause it, or you'll have to deal with Lee for a minute so I can talk to these guys. At this point, with hurricane repairs, I'm ready to go to van life, Lee. I'm just gonna buy a van and park it in the woods. Apparently, those van YouTube channels get a lot of views, man.
Apparently they do, mate. You're gonna start one anytime soon?
Of course. One thing I noticed that all the van life channels have is like a girl in her 20s in a bikini half the time on the thumbnails.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would
pay. It's like my travels in my van across the French countryside, and apparently you just wear a bikini the whole time you live in a van. I don't know, but they get a lot of views, a lot more than TA channels.
I feel like it's the only funny how that works. Ricardo.
Exactly. All right, guys, let's go ahead and kick this thing off so we can get this thing moving. By the way, if you're on it now and you come back to it, Lee will timestamp this video. So if you missed a section, you can always find it in the videos in Discord. And of course, it'll be up on the website here soon too. And you can just access it through there as well. We'll work all that stuff out. But all right, Lee, let's go ahead and throw those charts up. There's some charts I want to go over with you guys real quick. If you want to throw those on the screen.
Of course, we'll go from the first.
So a couple of things I want you guys to be aware of before we look at the price action. Okay. So this is from Bravo's research, but there's different ways to value the market. How overvalued is the market? Well, if you look at it, the S&P 500 versus market capitalization of the world's GDP. This is the most overvalued market of all time, approaching 50% of the world's GDP just in the S&P 500. Lee, go to that next slide. And this is something I think it's really important that everybody who's a member here understands this. Okay. This is from my former alma mater. I worked at Merrill Lynch, as you guys know. Bank of America bought us when we went bankrupt. So they called us Bank of America, but we always self-identify as Merrill Lynch. Nobody wanted to work at Bank of America. But institutions have been raising cash by selling to retail. This is something important. This just came out last week from Bank of America. the second largest net sale by institutional clients in our data's history since 2010. Okay. So this is the second largest dump they're doing on retail in the last 14, almost 15 years. Very important to understand. Why is that important? What is Warren Buffett doing? He just sold more stocks last week because his Buffett indicator is over 200% overvaluation of the marketplace. He's sitting on over $300 billion. Institutions are selling at a record pace, the second highest pace in the last 15 years. Lee, go to the next slide. Trading days from the first rate cut. So you guys know we've been tracking this, or I've been tracking this in accordance with the GFC cycle. September 18th, the same exact date that we cut 50 basis points. 50 basis points has historically always been considered an emergency cut, as you guys know. So 50 basis point cut September 18th. If you look at all the times going back to the Nifty 50 bubble in the 1970s, the average was after about 195 days, the market was down 23.5%. Okay. Not meaning 195 days, then it drops 23.5%, meaning the market's down an average going all the way back to the 1970s after the first rate cut, an average of 23.5% after the first 200 days, essentially, meaning the topping structure, which I think is happening right now, is undergoing. Okay. This is going back to the 1970s. You got the 1980s with Paul Volcker. You got the Nifty 50. You got 1987. You got .com. You got the GFC in here as well. Okay. Important to understand that. Lee, go to the next slide. So this one as well, this is something that I don't think a lot of people look at. This came from Bespoke. It's all over X, and there's other people that have it, I'm sure. But when you look at presidential election years, going back to 1928, if you look at 1928 on the far left, 22.76% rally. And then you look at 1936, 28.29% rally. Go over to the far right, 20.65, guys. And this chart is about a week or two old. I just measured it this morning. It's about 22%. We're on par with the 1928 rally. However, the most important data point that you're not seeing on this chart, do you know what happened after 1928? Do you know what happened after 1936? After you got these big election year rallies, 1929, the market began its decline of 80%. 1937, the market began its decline of 33%. It fell over 23% in 1937 and then fell another 10% in 1938. So you're tied right now at the 1928 rally, this election year rally. Both other times you got above 20% on an election year rally. You declined the following year 30% to 80% over that period of time. It was the beginning of your decline. That's not on this chart. That's what you need to know is going to happen. Okay. Are there any more, Lee?
That's all of them.
All right. You can take that off. All right. You can go. I'll go full screen. And then, so guys, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was where we are in the market right now with the markets. Bitcoin's breaking out, as we've been talking about. We crossed that 80,800 barrier. We're going to look at that in the charts as well. But understand, we talked about the jobs, the unemployment many times. My thesis of how I think this is going to play out, I wish we had that Bloomberg clip handy. You don't have that clip still loaded on Restream, do you, about the job revisions?
Hang on,
If
let
you do,
me double
if you
check.
can find it while I'm talking, that would be great. But if not, no big deal. We can play it next video. You guys have all seen it, except for maybe some of the new members. But guys, understand the way I think this is going to play out. The numbers have been cooked all year. That's not an opinion. That's an objective observation because we had the largest job revisions in U.S. history by a factor of 1.5. Remember, just a couple of months ago, it was minus 818,000 over the prior year, the largest by a factor of 1.5. The next time you were over 500,000, you have to go to the GFC, and this is 1.5 times larger than that. And then what happened with the last non-farm payrolls report is they revised the last 2 months down another 112,000, meaning you are now negative 930,000 jobs that the government said existed that did not exist. So what's going to happen with the new administration? It could happen as early as December. It could happen as early as January. But what's going to happen is when the new data comes in, the real data, you're going to see unemployment go up. And that's the big sell trigger right now. Right now, they're dumping stocks on retail, second highest pace in the last 15 years. But when they think that recession's coming, you're going to see big red bars in the market. And that data is going to come out true to form at some point, I think, in the next 2 or 3 months. Trump doesn't actually get seated till January 20th. Maybe they finish off December with another, whatever, milquetoast, mild jobs report. Same with January, because it'll come out in the early part of January. But I can't see that going into February. And at some point, the rubber's going to meet the road. Did you find that, Lee?
Yeah, we've got it if we want to play it right now.
Yeah, watch this clip, guys, and we'll talk about it just on the other side. Go ahead and play it, Lee.
Bloomberg's Cameron Kreis has noted that in 3 decades of Bloomberg data, there has never been a cumulative 1-year downward revision of 500,000 jobs or more without a recession. What do these revisions really say to you at the end of the day?
So we would expect the numbers to be off. This off is pretty dramatic. It's the largest that we've seen in 15, 16 years. It's about 1.5 times larger than any other downward revision that we've seen. So it's a pretty big deal.
So basically, just kind of repeating what I was saying, but this is the data that you've been presented that the market's been rallying on is not accurate. That's the key takeaway to understand what's been happening with the data, guys. So if you understand that the numbers have been fake, when the real numbers come in, that's your catalyst for big downside. But right now, you're in that euphoric rally. The second strongest rally, we're going to defeat the 1928 rally, second strongest rally in U.S. history for an election year rally going back 100 years. Both other rallies that went over 20% resulted in a 30+% correction or crash, you could call it. And then and obviously 1928 was 80%. So I think 2025 is going to be a major sell-off catalyst year, okay? But let's go ahead and jump into the charts. Lee, if you want to show my charts or share my screen for me.
Go ahead. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready. Let's go. So I want to start off with the Shiller PE ratio, guys. Now, this is a 10-year inflation-adjusted PE ratio. Notice we're at 38.25. If you remember, I was talking about my opinion, we're going to take out 2021, right? That's 38.58. We're almost there. We're almost taking that out. And if you look at the mean, right, 17.7, you're double what the mean is. And understand when we were talking about 1929, right, that got all the way up to, where did I get up to here? That got up to 31.48, right, on the Shiller PE, 80% crash. And what about 1936? Which was that election year, right? So 1937, the peak of it, you got to 22.24. You sold off 33%, a Dow retracement. Okay, now you're at 38.25. Remember, just in 2021 and 2022, what happened? The S&P fell 28%. The NASDAQ fell 38%. Bitcoin fell 80%. And you're right back to where you were in 2021 with a lot of euphoria in the marketplace with institutions selling on your face. So let's go ahead and look at some of the charts. The VIX is conducive for a rally. This is a VIX futures looking at 15.25, right? You're back in the base down here. Down here, this is conducive for the rally, right? This is the retail rally, buying everything. Everybody's on TV selling the sales pitch of Tom Lee's out there. He said he thinks small caps are going to outperform by great magnitudes over the next coming years. All the sales pitches are out there. When you look at the S&P, 6,038 on the S&P futures here on the weekly chart. We talked about this off the pandemic low. You're up 180%. If you get to 6,100, you're up 75% off the corrective low. If you get to 6,100, again, 180 expressed in degrees is a pivot point on the circle. 75% is 3/4 of a circle. I'm looking for another key turn in the market on November 25th, that weekly bar. Again, we have 111 bars, 777 days. But guys, this Friday is very important to pay attention to. I went ahead and put the other previous lunar cycles on here as well. This is S&P futures. Looking at S&P futures, just going back just to August, okay? I don't want to sit here and draw all these, but you guys have seen this many times. But going back to August, you formed your top with the full moon. You see this? You started topping. You went sideways for a couple weeks. Your new moon dropped you down. Nice retracement too, by the way. You look at this, this was almost a 5% retracement, almost 300 points. Your next lunar cycle, your full moon, you rallied up into it, formed your top, sold off to your new moon. You then rallied back up into the super moon. This is where we traded the S&P. We got that nice 200-point drop, and then you bottomed the day after the new moon. The next lunar cycle is this 15th, which is Friday. Okay, so I want to be paying attention to this. When you're looking at the price action on the daily candles, you're having a lot of trouble with that 60-50 area. So let's go ahead and just get some targets on this. If we look at this from wave 1 here on our W down to 2, right? 61.21 is what you get at the 1618. The ABC pattern, 61.36. I'm not completely confident that you're going to get to 61.21 because of the way the price is behaving. I want to show you this in a couple different metrics here, but let's look at this from Fibonacci first. Look at Fibonacci. What's another way we could get a measurement here? Let me expand this so you guys can see this. So we know we were selling off. We had our short going on, and then we had the Trump rally. That's this big pump up on the daily, right? Well, let's take a fib right there on the supermoon, the previous all-time high, pull it down to that retracement level low, okay? Look exactly what you're hitting, 1618, 6052. You look at 6053 is the high. That's where you got rejected. We need to get above 6052. Again, remember I said view the S&P from this level here on in chunks of 50. 6,000, 6,050, 6,050 to 6,100, 6,100 to 6,150. We got to get above 6,050, and then you can get some movement up to 6,100. But understand, you're being sold on, okay? This is a retail rally. This is a second most dumping of stocks by institutions in the last 15 years. We know this. This is why price is opening up really strong. Everybody's on Robinhood, on their apps. They're buying stocks, and then they're getting sold into as the rally comes up. So you want to watch 6052 really closely, especially as we get closer to this pivot time. I would love to see this get to 6100. Can it get there? We're going to find out. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. If we look at this, actually, the one thing I want to show you here as well, another reason that we're having a lot of difficulty, so you guys know, market makers, Bollinger Bands, right? Let's check these out. Throw these on here, daily time frame. Zoom in so you can see it. You're above the band. Now, that's not a unique phenomenon, but understand 95% of price action, according to John Bollinger, happens within the bands. Okay. By the way, this indicator, part of being a member, all of our indicators are free. It's a custom indicator. You guys can get it on the Discord. Contact Lee if you have any questions. But as you can see, when you spike out of it, you sell back off into it, right? When you spike out the bottom, you rally back into it. You're above the band. This is why you're having some difficulty. You're more than 2 standard deviations above trend, meaning you're having difficulty getting this last leg up. So you're opening strong, you're selling off throughout the day today. We'll see how that continues. How does this translate to the SPY? For those of you that are trading the SPY, if we pull our fib from the 1 wave of our W to the 2 wave, look where your 1618 is, 599.08. You're at 599.34. You're hitting the 1618. You're just above the 1618. Next key fib is the doubling of that range, which is 620. Could it get there? I mean, not at this rate, right? Not at this rate it can't. So you want to watch this area for topping action. And by that, I mean, see how this week starts playing out. You want to stay above 599. If you start dropping back below, watch to see if you start hitting your head on 599. So you want to see what happens here. You can go down to smaller time frames as well, but we'll go over the SPY some more if people are interested in it. But just understand you're at a key inflection point level for the SPY right now. If we look at the Dow, remember, this is a leading indicator oftentimes for the S&P. Again, same 3 lunar cycles. The Dow topped for its all-time high the day after the full moon. It bottomed the day after the new moon. The 15th is the next lunar cycle. Want to see if the Dow can get up there. If we look at the Dow, same way we look at the S&P, from the 1 wave to the 2 wave of our W pattern, 44,803 is my next key target. You already passed the 1618 with the Trump pump up, 43,607. But when you're looking at fibs, understand, have they been playing out? You look at the 1618, it dropped the Dow 1,800 points. So yes, it's been playing out. 44,803 is the next key level if we can get there. By the way, NVIDIA is now in the Dow. They added NVIDIA in the Dow just a couple days ago, in case you guys weren't paying attention. And NVIDIA reports earnings on the 20th of this month, right? So just be aware of that. Now, when we look at this, same problem, right? What are you hitting right here? That's what you want to see. What are you hitting right here? Let's check out the 1.414 and see if we have this here on our fibs. Where'd it go? Come on. It's not showing up for some reason. Oh, there it is. It's down there. 1.414 is below us. We want to look at, the 1.902. I'm sorry. We're close to the 2 fib. So when you look at the 2 fib at 44,803, remember 200% is not a fib. It's an expansion range, right? You're doubling this range. You're measuring from 1 to 2. And the 1.902, if you take a geometric shape like a rectangle, it's a diagonal line cutting between it diagonally. 1.902, but it's exactly what you're hitting right now at 44,496. Want to get above that to get up to that 44,803. Okay. Let's see how we're looking if we measure this with the Trump pump here. Your sell off, that big sell off, the 1618, 44,687. Again, you almost got there today. You got the 44,625. So you're, again, the Dow at key resistance level, the S&P close to key resistance level, 6,050, right? It got a couple dollars above it, sold back off some. The SPY at key resistance level. Understand what's happening in the markets. You look at the NASDAQ, key resistance level already. You have a quadrupling off the pandemic low. This is NQs, this is NASDAQ futures. You have a doubling off of the retracement level low. And that's where you're at right now, 21,220. You completed the giant ABC. You got just above it. Let's see if we can hold up there. We're going to zoom in here on the daily time frame. When you look at this, the best way I'm looking at this, again, we have wave 3 to wave 4. We got above with the Trump pump, right above the 1618, 2167, 21,067. You're kind of rolling over kind of softly. Now, my predictions came true, right? We made a new all-time high. We made it on the composite a week or so ago. We got it on the futures, but we got above 2167. So you want to look and see, well, what else is hitting this, right? Where are you getting this contact from? And again, if you look at prior to that dip, October 30th, pull it down right before the Trump pump, right? Look at your 1618, 21,270. That's what you're hitting right now. What was your high today? 21,340. So again, just above that, 21,568 for a doubling of that range. You're running into resistance. You're being sold into by big money. Understand what's happening in the markets right now. Might not look like it with Bitcoin, but remember, it took the NASDAQ to pump up and make a new all-time high for Bitcoin to finally break out. So it's important what this week plays out. If you can come up some more, or if you start topping in this range and start breaking down, it's a precursor of what's going to happen in crypto. Why? Because the NASDAQ and Bitcoin track at an 80 to 93% correlation since the pandemic low. Right? Understand that. Also, if you look at this, by the way, let me go ahead and get rid of this. Just want to show you this with the Bollinger Bands as well, the market makers bands. Same thing. You're having the same phenomenon because you got overcooked on this rally, right? So we can throw our bands on here and you can see how they're lining up. You're above the band, right? You're above the band. You're outside the band. What's the normal move? To retrace into the band. That's the normal move, but this is euphoric, right? Now, what are we looking at when we get to these levels? This could be the absolute market top that's coming up to a theater near you, or it could just be a pullback for a nice retracement. Maybe a 10% retracement, maybe deeper, and then maybe you rally next year. We don't know. We don't know as traders. Now, my thesis is the trigger is going to be the unemployment when it comes out, right? But I think you're approaching the true market top. We'll know when we get our trades, when it sells off, at some point you will rally back up. Maybe after 3% decline, 5% decline, 8% decline, you will get a big rally back up. And if you make a lower high and can't take out the all-time high, guess what? The market top might be in. When else did we top in November, guys? We topped in November 2021. The Russell, Bitcoin, NASDAQ, all top. The S&P ran to January 2022. So understand we're in this time of the year. You're getting euphoric market moves. Look at the small caps, right? We just passed 2409. This is the Russell. You're about to break your all-time high at 2460. You're at 2443 right now. I think you can get to 2523. And then you want to see if this starts acting as resistance up here. Even if you spike above it, you want to see 2523 if this holds up as resistance, which gives you a giant false break double top, right? Your giant false break double top, meaning you broke above the previous all-time high, but it is not a true breakout because you're in a topping range at that point. Let's see if that level holds. It's not that far away. Going to go ahead and move forward. Looking at the DAX, as you guys know, the reciprocal move for the ABC off the pandemic low was 20,160. Have a lot of patterns that get you to 20,200. From the one wave to the two wave down here, 20,200 at the 1618. You're stuck at the 1272 at 19,540, right? So we have a lot of Fibonacci confluence for the DAX. Does it mean it has to get there? No. We're also in the beginning of the week. It could still get there. Let's go ahead and get rid of this 5-wave pattern, right? That would be my ideal trade, 20,200. But when you look at this, again, this is a typical 5-wave pattern that's really having problems for price. So you look at this price action, 4-wave, and here's your 5, right? What do you have right here? This is all you have. You have a head and shoulders on the DAX above your Wyckoff range that took you months from May all the way down to your false break to the down thrust here in August. You broke out above it in September. So you got above it, but you just have a simple pattern right now. Left shoulder, a head, a right shoulder, a 5-wave pattern. And when you measure this with Fibonacci, and I would like to see this break out to get to our 1618, but where are you struggling? Look at the fibs, guys. You're struggling at the 618 at 19,528, the 786 at 19,649, right? You're struggling essentially right in that kill box range for price. So if you can't get above 19,649, you could very easily be topping here, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then this would be looking to break down and re-enter this range. So we're going to watch this because it tracks very closely with the US markets. Dow's rallying, the S&P's rallying, DAX is rallying. That's how money flows in these places. We look at Bitcoin because you're on a solid breakout, 85K at the time of this recording. You guys have seen this chart many times now on the weekly. Our legs up 106%, 102%, 92%. If you were to project this leg out, that takes you to that 98K Bitcoin target that we've been talking about. Can it get there is the whole key, right? So we pull this fib down. There you go. 98K on Bitcoin. So can it get there? Well, that's the $1 million question, or I should say the $100,000 question. But right now, your next key level is 89,231. That's your next key level. If you can flip 89, I think you're going to 98,750, which we'll just call it 100K because realistically, you get the 98,750, you know it's going to throw a wick up there at least, right? So 89K is your next key level. It's only 4,000 points above you, 4,500 points above you. That's the level to watch. What did Bitcoin do that was very important to me anyways? It completed the giant ABC, the 80,800, right? That's the move the NASDAQ did. The NASDAQ also did this move, got above the 100%. So I think the 1618 at 89,231 is going to be key to see how Bitcoin handles that, because if the markets do end up doing one last euphoric push, S&P to 6,100, maybe a few hundred, 500 more points on the NASDAQ, try to come up a level. I want to see if Bitcoin can get up to that 89K. If the market starts selling off, guys, later this week, they start pulling back into the band. It's really, really important how that sell-off goes. Is it hundreds of points in the NASDAQ? Remember, the rally up in the Dow was 1,500 points. It was massive. Does it sell off 500 points in a chunk? Because when you start getting big market moves in negative directions, that's when you see crypto affected, right? You're going to see Bitcoin just pause. So if it's at 85K and everything turned around and dumped viciously today or tomorrow, you're going to see Bitcoin pause, right? And maybe you'll start consolidating. And then what's the trigger for Bitcoin? When the markets roll over, specifically the NASDAQ, you really want to be paying attention to what crypto's doing, because that is going to be what the big money's doing. Now, I saw there's record inflows again into IBIT right now. Again, institutional money coming in as well in the crypto space. And that's what you got to be aware of. They're selling a lot of stocks. There's crypto FOMO right now. Crypto's rallying. Markets are approaching very close to topping levels. You're getting near that time where you're going to have what can end up being maybe just a correction, or it could end up being the market top in the market. So you want to pay attention to this. And here's our levels again, right? We had our descending channel. We can take our fib from that previous all-time high to that corrective low. You took out the 80,600, completed the 100% move. You can see here on the daily, 89,239 is the next level. Do you just simply hit it like this, pull back a little bit, consolidate a little bit, and get one of those big up candles to 98.7? That's what we want to see, right? We want to see, as we get up into this range, what ends up happening with Bitcoin. If it can tackle it, if it can just knife through it, or if it hits it, retraces, and powers through it, right? It's going to make some candles, some structure that we can see. You can come up, come down, hold your range, maybe build a W and break out to the upside. Or we're going to see what the markets are doing. And if they're topping and or selling, then I think you're getting close to the Bitcoin top, which they're not doing yet. Okay. They're not selling off. So just understand that this has time to get there as of now. But I think the end of this week is going to be really key going into Monday of next week. The bond market's not even open today because it's Veterans Day. So there's nothing going on with yields. So this is a good time to make some progress in the marketplace. And let's look at our indicators really quickly here. On the MFI, you're in bullish territory. You have good momentum. On Bitcoin, what do we got for Solana? Solana broke out above 210, which is what you wanted to see. The next target's 237. Again, same structure as Bitcoin. You had your low, you had your series of higher lows all the way through. You bounced off your 50. You're knifing up 237. Bitcoin gets to 89. I think you're getting the 237. Bitcoin goes to 98. I think you're getting the 272 at the 1618. And, if you have some type of Solana surge, a doubling of that range takes you to 310. But again, you're starting to get some wicks on some of these pumps because the markets are kind of pausing. You could also get a check back to 210. And this gives you two options when we see what the markets are doing in general, right? Are they topping? Are they pausing and getting that last surge? But if this comes back and back checks 210, right? Back checks 210, maybe on the 4 hour, 1 hour, however you want to trade it, you start establishing a range, you make your W, you get your low, you get your higher low, you can break out above that level, trade it up to the upside, especially if your market view tells you this thing's going to 270 or 300, right? So that's one way to watch it, but you got the pumps. You let the pump settle, see how the pump bases. Does it top or does it bottom, right? Does it hold support and try to move up? That's what you want to watch. But look at NVIDIA, what we were just talking about. Look at NVIDIA, you can pull the fib here from wave 3 to wave 4 of our W pattern, 149.99. What was the exact high of NVIDIA that we've got to so far? 149.77, within 20 cents of the of the all-time high. So 149.99. They don't even report to the 20th, guys, but this is part of the markets, right? And money has to decide where it wants to flow. Is it overvalued? I think it's tremendously overvalued. Other people don't think that. That's why you're sitting close to your all-time high. But understand, this right now is struggling. So this is part of the reason why the market's not zipping up higher. If NVIDIA breaks out, which like Tesla is, if NVIDIA breaks out, you're going to see it drag the markets up. It's the largest company in the world. That one stock is more valuable than the entire German DAX of 40 companies. And that includes Volkswagen, which includes Porsche, which includes Audi, it includes BMW, Mercedes, SAP, DHL, massive companies, a couple pharmaceutical companies. One company is more valuable than the entire German DAX. So this is important what it does. If it builds a topping structure, if it starts the back test 139 once again, or if it can leg up. If it can leg up and break out, come up to that 161 target, I think you're going to see S&P get to 6,100 because of the way that it's weighted. And I think you'll see the NASDAQ go up a few hundred points as well because it'll carry sectors with it. So that's something important to understand. And I think we had, let me get those requests real quick, and then I'll talk to you, Lee, in a second. We had a RIOT request. And let me look at RIOT. So let's back this thing up because I don't follow RIOT. So I want to see what it's been doing here on a weekly. You had your previous high, obviously, back in 2021. Look at that. All the way up at, what is that, about 80 bucks. So when you, this is totally going to depend how you look at this, right? If you're looking at this long term from a weekly time frame, for instance, right, you can find your low. You can find your reasonable high right here, 14, 15 bucks. Your fractal high at $20. And you can kind of see, let's do it this way, actually. If your fractal high, let's put your low down here at your fractal low. So $20.65, $8.61, you're at $14.91. You're mid-range in that perspective if you zoom out on RIOT, right? But I know people aren't going to trade off the weekly. I don't trade off the weekly. Just looking at it for TA perspectives. Let's go to the daily, see what we got, right? On the daily time frame, what I want to do first, though, I do want to take this high with the fib retracement, pull it down to that low, that down thrust low, and look exactly where you're getting stuck. 618, 1519, okay? That tells you this is a key level. When you start looking at where you're getting hit here, remember what you're doing with Fibonacci, it's a harmonic measurement, a universal measurement of expansion and contraction ratios. So the 618 at 1519 is key resistance, 786 at 1759, and you can see it, right? You can see it on the chart. So you can see where you're topping. If you can get above this, you don't want to repeat what you did twice before, meaning you come up to 17, 18 bucks, you start struggling, you back test, you struggle, and then you ultimately break down again. But just be aware of that. They can play out that way. You got to flip that. You're at 1484. Let's see what the indicators say here. Money flow's bullish, but it's getting close to overbought. Momentum's still strong on the daily time frame. So you have momentum, you have money flow, but you're hitting resistance. Now, obviously, this tracks with Bitcoin to some extent, right? So this tracks to Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin does come up to the 89, I think 1759 is highly possible. Maybe you're in your market view, you think it goes much higher, but I would watch it, right? You got gaps that have formed now from the euphoria. So you want to see if this pulls back some or if it can accelerate to the upside, but you got to clear 1519. If you clear that, you can check out that next level up and just be very well aware of that resistance just above you. Lee, what was the other request? I don't remember. It was RIOT and was it SHIB?
Top down, but yeah, there's SHIB is the next one.
I just saved that chart. Damn it! I just saved over my NVDA chart. Let me see. SHIB, USDT. I don't know what SHIB's thing is. It SHIB perp? Maybe it's SHIB perp.
Probably guessing it's a future. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so let's look at SHIB real quick. On the daily time frame, you had a recent spike of, I don't even know how to say that number. It's such a small number. But all right, let me look at this from a Fibonacci perspective. If you go back to March of 2024, come down here, we got to add a 50% retracement is probably what you hit. It's exactly what you hit. You hit the 50% retracement, okay? Now, when you look at some just basic TA methodology, right? You have your low here, you're forming a series of higher lows, again, bullish, right? But when you can see that the fib's tracking this clean, meaning right here, 50% retracement at the spot 0.00000 28274, right? Right above it, 32405. This is exactly like RIOT in that sense. The key thing to do is to get on top of your resistance and hold it as support. So even if you make like a double top, maybe get a down thrust, but you don't break down below, allow yourself the opportunity to curl back to the upside in a bullish pattern, okay? That's the key thing that you need to do in this situation. But right now, that's your strong resistance, 28274. You can pull that on that chart using that fractal high of March of 2024. If you get above that, Get above the 618. You know, altcoins, typically Bitcoin gets the money going in. When Bitcoin starts cooling off, money flows to the altcoins. So you can see more breakouts in that fashion as well. You may end up getting hung up here for a little bit if it repeats something like this, but in reverse, the structure over here, right? So if it ends up doing something like this, gets above, comes down, you just want to see these lows getting higher and higher, coiling, right? You want to see them getting a low, higher low, get some coiling action to the upside. But that level above you, 382.87, if you can flip the 50% retracement, get above the 618. You want to look at these levels. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you look at it from a trading perspective of where you're at right now, if you got up to that level, it's a 32% move, right? Just keep in mind, the last 30 years, the S&P averaged 10% a year. This is 32% in a single trade. So this is like 3 years of gains on the S&P. The long-term average of the S&P is 7%. Right. So, I mean, this is why trading can be fun and you can make a lot of money. If you only get to that 618, it's still 12, 13, 14% move, depending what your entry is. If you accumulate it down here, it's obviously a lot more. So we'll keep tracking this stuff. Lee, I got time for one more. Does anybody else have a request?
Yeah, well, the next one down is Ethereum.
Ethereum. I actually had an Ethereum chart. I don't know if I saved it from another request. 1 second. All right. I'll just type it in. Redoing my work. Let's look at this. All right. So Ethereum finally breaking back out to the upside. March 2024 high over here. Let's denote this because you have a nice Wyckoff trading range down here, right? You have a selling climax candle back on whatever that date was, August 5th, 2024. You got a fractal high. You have your accumulation range, right? You put in your low. I remember doing this with Ethereum and it was coiling forever. Your low, your higher low, your series of higher lows, a retest to the bottom, your breakout above. Now, the next move typically after a breakout is at some point some type of retracement to pull back, right? That's what we want to look for on fibs here. So let's look at the fibs, see what we got. If we look at the expansion range from this Wyckoff sideways range, I want to measure that first. Then we'll pull a fib from the high. But this expansion range of your Wyckoff range was at 2018, pull it down to this fractal low. You got above the 1618 if you measure it this way. 200% move, which is a doubling of this range. If you guys watch people on YouTube and they said, oh, this is a doubling of the range, you're referring to the specified range that you denote it, right? So that's 3,488 if you can get up to that 200%. But let's pull this from some higher levels here. Let's look at this from this. First, let's look at it from the March high down to that low. And you defeated the 50% retracement, 3108. The next key level, 3341, is the 618, which you're coming up to right now. I also like to take this from the next leg, okay? So I like to take it from this next high too, see if you're getting any confluence, see if you're hitting something that's being presented on Fibonacci right now. And when you look at it this way, you're just getting above the 618. So let's take it from the high because you haven't quite contacted this yet. So looking at that 3341, you got to get above that range. All these candles here will act as resistance, but just like with everything else, especially if it plays out like previous cycles, if Bitcoin starts cooling off at some point, more money flows into alts. You're getting alts pumping now, Bitcoin pumping now. 3341 above that, 3673 is your next key target. And we can go over like longer term macro targets more in depth on an altcoin video that we can do for the Discord. But I think that's it, Lee. That's what I got.
No problem. Well, all the other questions, they can ask a question in the Discord and they can be answered there.
Yeah. Was there any questions about anything?
Well, there was a few other requests. Some of them were cryptos and then some of them were general questions.
Some of these requests is there any, are any of the names big or is it like crazy altcoins?
Well, that all depends on who you ask. I mean, you got DOGE as one of them. I suppose that's the most popular one.
Oh, let's look at DOGE then. But there's no like no pirate chain.
Oh, there is. There's a Moo. I don't know. I've never heard of that one. GBT.
That might be a coin. That might be a coin for the exchange.
Yeah,
there's a Moo exchange. I don't. What is the Doge? What is the Doge handle? I don't even know what it is.
It's DOGE, I think.
Oh, I spelled Dodge. That's the car company. All right, look at Doge real quick. All right, last one, guys, and I can do more in the Discord. But this is what got me into crypto. I don't want to tell another long story. The long-term members know is when my brother started trading this back in 2021, and he called me up and said, "Hey, you need to buy Doge." And I said the same thing I just typed in. I said, "You mean the truck?" He's like, "No, buy Doge." I'm like, what word are you saying? He's like, "Buy Doge." I'm like, "What is that?" He's like, "It's an altcoin." I had no idea what it was, but he bought it for 4 or 5 cents. Remember, it was over here, 4 or 5 cents. And actually, it's 2021. This doesn't go back. Oh, it does. But he bought it for 4 or 5 cents, and it went up to whatever it got to, 78 cents or something, and held it the whole way. I told him to sell it, and of course, he held it all the way back down. But it's flying now. It's at 32 cents here. So this is a daily chart. Let's just look at this. Well, I don't know what the history here is. I don't even know what chart I picked. BingX. Let's see what the history is, if this has it any amount of time here. Let's go back on a weekly. This only goes back to 20. I don't know when it came out, but this goes back to now. It came out before November for sure, November 2021. But a couple of things we can do here, guys. So let's go back to the daily, and we'll pull a fib, because I like to look at this spike here in the middle, right? Yeah, this peak up, pull down. So let's look at this. So if we pull this here to measure this from this angle, come on. Candle's so sensitive. There we go. Misclick. Look at that. You're right at the 1618. I mean, make this shit up, guys. This is why I love Fibonacci. So from that high in March of 2024, pulling it down to that retracement low, you're right at spot 32,106. You see that on the screen? That's what you're hitting right now, right? So the 200% move, the doubling of this range that we just took Fibonacci from, takes you up to 37.7, right? Right up here. So you can do that on your own chart, pull that. So what does this mean? This means you want to get above 32 cents. I'm just going to call it 32 cents. You want to get above 32 cents, hold it as support, right? Make your structure. You'll have some type of Wyckoff structure, break out from it with a pattern to come up to that 37, 38 cent range. If you start getting pullback, the area you want to hold is 27 cents. Okay. You're at 32. You want to hold 27. If you can get above 32, that's very bullish. That's just a quick one on Doge. Just tag me in the Discord if you have any other requests. I don't want to make this video too egregiously long so other people will watch it. And then I can get you guys some charts in the room as well. All right, Lee, I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining.